Pittsburgh Steeler fans, welcome back to another episode of the Scho Bro Show. It is Tuesday night. It's just after 9 p.m. It's the off season, but it's time to talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers. I am behind the steel curtain co-editor Dave Schofield coming at you, and with me, as always, Big Brother Rich. How's it going tonight, Big Bro Scho?
It is going. We'll just put it that way. And let's talk Steelers. Okay.
Let's talk Steelers. Yeah. All right. So here we go. Hey, we had a lot of fun last week, so we're going to kind of keep it a little bit of a similar theme this week with what we're doing. I just realized I'm looking at myself in the screen and just realized my helmet's falling down.
Not theme.
No.
Format.
So, format.
We're keeping a similar format.
And that's why you're here, to keep me in line. Yeah, it's a similar format to last week. We're not going to be tackling the same things. Last week we talked about, who we thought could be the team MVP this year. That was a lot of fun. If you didn't catch that, make sure you go back and catch it. We got to do some questions at the end. That was a lot of fun when we get to questions. Hopefully we'll have time to do that again this week. But in order to do that, we've got to get rolling through stuff. Now, when it comes to Steelers news, the only thing to talk about now is really OTAs, as much news as we can get from them. But the big news with OTAs today was one Benjamin Todd Roethlisberger spoke to the media after OTAs. He was the player scheduled to talk. So, of course, when Ben talks, people listen. So I even know, Brooke Pryor, who covers the team for ESPN, she's like, yep, I know Ben talked today. They want me to be on SportsCenter. Anyone else, it doesn't matter. But Ben Roethlisberger talked, people listen. Did you get to check out? We put some of his quotes on the OTA tracker that we do.
Yes, I saw the OTA tracker today, yes. Yeah,
so in case you wonder what I'm talking about, we do an article. It comes out at 12:30 every day. That's an OTA tracker that as news is coming out about OTAs, we put it up there. The media that's there, they're not allowed to report anything until practice is over. So practice finishes around noon. So then things start trickling in. There wasn't much to start because everyone was focused on Roethlisberger speaking, and then other stuff started to come in. Lots of cool video clips and whatnot, all in one place. If you don't know how to find that, make sure you check that out at behindthesteelcurtain.com, your one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers. But we put some of these quotes in this article, and I'm looking at some of them now. So you got to read some of his quotes? I haven't watched the video transcript of it yet. I'm going to do that tonight after the show. Tuesdays are crazy for me. Had another softball game tonight. First loss of the season. Still trying to get over it. Anyway, in the bottom of the ninth. That's the worst. Anyway, no one wants to hear about that.
No,
but
they really don't.
Anything particular? What's the first thing? Can you remember any one thing that was the first thing that stood out to you from anything Ben said today?
Ben said, my idea to cut my salary.
Yep, that was one of it. He said that was his suggestion. He brought it up first. And I mean, my goodness, who's not going to take advantage of that? So, he shaved $5 million off of what he would have made. And he, didn't mind the Steelers working things the way they needed to put in the void years and get things down for this year. Also heard that he was constantly bugging, and don't know if it was Mike Tomlin, Kevin Colbert, or both, about Juju up until the Steelers re-signed him. He was constantly bugging them, in their ear, talking about it, wanted to know what's going on with Juju Smith-Schuster. So he was really in on that one. Had some interesting words about the offense that I thought was interesting. Okay. He said that it feels like their team's kind of special this year right now, but people are kind of overlooking them. He likes that a little bit better. I have to agree with him with that. Before we get into the stuff he was saying about, the offense and whatnot, I was trying to, not as always, but what I have to sometimes do, I was talking one Michael Beck down off the ledge the other day, because I had an article that came out today that was talking about the Steelers. They have options to reduce the salary cap. They're sitting right around 7.2 under the cap. It's not going to take much more when they sign Kendrick Green. He's going to end up being their 51st guy. So there's barely going to be any displacement there of $50,000 is the only difference there. But that's if they wanted to skimp going into the season, then they're okay with what they have. If they, that would, after the, what do I say? Practice squad, last 2 guys on the roster, things like that. There'll be some other little things up and down, like if a guy that has a little bit bigger salary gets cut. But then you'll have guys that also will not make the team that'll have a little bit of dead money, things like that. They're probably, if you look at that, it's kind of almost going to be a wash, hopefully, when you look at that. So the Steelers need to, they might have that money, but that's still really not enough to roll into the season. They could use another $1 million or so, and their options are not good. I talked once again about how the restructure for Stephon Tuitt, it wouldn't just be kicking the can down the road. It would make a bigger can. They'd have to pay him more because of the 17th game, things like that. But I was trying to explain this to Michael Beck, that I'm like, because he really wants them to add another player somewhere. And I'm like, once again, I have to say with what money? Like I say, they have options. They're just not great options. I still think their best option would be to extend someone like Joe Hayden or David DeCastro. But then you're talking about extending a guy that's already 32 or 33 years old. So it's not like that's the greatest option. Sometimes with those guys, it's better to see how they do this season before you try to lock them up longer. It's interesting. But when I was trying to talk about it, I was saying, just look back at the Steelers team that was at the point where they were 10-0 last year. Let's not even look at before the whole debacle, before Thanksgiving and everything get moved around. If you take that team and you say, you have pretty much the same team, you already lost Bud Dupree. Well, no, you hadn't. He played in week 11 and then you lost him. So it's not like that was someone that's a big loss. Yes, you chose to move on from Steven Nelson. You don't have Mike Hilton. That's really it for the defense. The offense, there's a little bit with the offensive line. You've made an upgrade at the running back position. Your other 2 top draft picks are basically replacing guys that retired. Hopefully, eventually, maybe they will right off the bat. I'm like, if I could give you last year's team sitting at 10-0 and told you that they had a creative offensive scheme, would you take it?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I'd say
no.
Let's just put the jumbo package in and hand it off.
Yeah.
Of course I'd take it.
Yeah. And the thing is, when that's what the Steelers are rolling into this season. They've got all their wide receivers back. They've got the majority of their defense back. They're getting Devin Bush back, if you know what I mean. So, and when you look at it and you say, hey, if the biggest problem with the Steelers at the end of the year last year was there was no creativity on offense, you're hoping that that's what you have this year. And then Ben Roethlisberger said something today about that. All that talk and all that lead up was for something that Ben Roethlisberger said today. This was where he said he was forced to do a lot of play calling / game designing on the fly last season. Now he has a new offensive coordinator. This is from Didi Kinkobala of the NFL Network. Said whose system is very different than what he's run lately. And the 39-year-old quarterback says, I'm just trying to do everything I can to be open to the new challenge. But he also said something else that I'm trying to find here that says, oh, this is not a stagnant offense anymore. This is not what you were getting last year. Okay, this is what he said. He said the offense will look completely different and it won't be predictable. Those are the words from Ben Roethlisberger. 1, do I like to hear that? Yes. 2, do I like to hear that specifically from Ben Roethlisberger? What do you think of that?
Oh, now you're going to ask me?
Yeah.
Why? Because you didn't get anything. You were hogging all the
microphone. That was a super long setup. I feel like the one Tonight Show skit where they sit there and they say, and they go on for 2 or 3 minutes and then just ask a question and then just say, so how you doing? So all that was to set up more coming from Ben Roethlisberger, or do you think it's just worse?
There's a little bit of both in there. So Ben knows he's got a lot of work to do to get this down.
Yeah.
And, but I think he does know and understand that it's going to be their only chance to be successful is if he gets this down.
Mm-hmm.
He's got to get it down.
Yeah.
Like it did. Like I think he has come to a point where he understood that the Steelers' offensive philosophies needed to change.
Mm-hmm.
And although it's very late in his career to be doing that, I believe he truly understands that if he wasn't willing to do that, he should have walked away.
Yeah. Yeah. You are 100% correct. I mean, that's how it's come down to the whole time with Ben. If he's not going to buy into what to saying, hey, something's got to be different here. This is what we're going to do different. If he's not buying in, then it was the perfect time to ride off into the sunset. It really was. And he didn't. So now we still have to remember, it's called cautiously optimistic. Can you be optimistic that, hey, maybe with some unpredictability, what the Steelers had going on in the first half and beyond of last season is something they can do again this year. And I'm not talking about the massive win streak. I'm just talking about early on, they were playing well. And then that just didn't happen because when the other team basically has your playbook, your hands are tied. So is it possible we could see the team that we saw the last 5 weeks of the season as well as the postseason? Yeah. But it's also possible they could be that other team. And last year, a lot of people were writing off the Steelers because Ben's coming back from the surgery and blah, blah, blah. And now, PFF with their narrative of Ben can't throw the ball more than 10 yards past the line of scrimmage. You know what? Keep it up. Keep it going. I love it. Agreed?
Agreed. It's like, these guys with their early on predictions of how things are going to go typically ranks right up there with mock drafts in my eyes.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, honestly, I have been covered. I've written so many articles covering PFF rankings lately because the Steelers are on them. And I give my disclaimer, so much so that I've copied and pasted it and actually quote myself in my articles about take as much stock in their stuff as you want to. But it's stuff to talk about now. It really is.
Yeah. It is. But what those things are doing, they're just throwing so much stuff at the wall, knowing that at least something somewhere is going to stick. And then they're going to be able to say, oh, look at that. Look, we got that right. Well, sure. When you predict 8,000 things, your chances of getting at least 4 of them right are pretty high.
I'll preview this that's coming out from me sometime tomorrow. I did another one. It was the PFF ranking the safeties, top 32 safeties for the season. They had Minkah Fitzpatrick at 5. Now, normally you think, hey, that's good. But you know what? Then I got to look at them like, why only 5? Only one guy ahead of him on the list had ever been All-Pro. 2 of the 4 guys ahead of him on the list have never made the Pro Bowl. And yet they had them ahead of Minkah Fitzpatrick. So I'm like, you know what? Good. Minkah should see that. He should get the recognition for being 5, and yet that should still light the fire of, you know what? I'm going to show him how I'm number 1. But here's what's crazy. They kind of snubbed all the guys that were All-Pro. Out of all the All-Pro players from the last 2 years, Minkah was actually ranked the highest. They had the other All-Pro guys way down the list. Kind of crazy. Anything else you want to talk about from training camp? Are you ready to dive into this topic?
I have talked enough of OTAs because training camp doesn't start for a little while yet.
OTAs. Anything else from Ben Roethlisberger? There's lots of good stuff you can find at Steelers.com.
Other than I liked him taking the typical Ben approach at the end of that, not saying, not giving anything away on if this was it this year.
Yeah.
For him.
Yep. I like that.
Good for you. Don't take the bait.
Good. And one other thing I will say from OTAs is that he had his receivers there today.
Yes.
It's almost like they're cycling through different things with stuff. That Michael Beck was actually bringing that up to Jeff Hartman and I, saying it's almost like they're scheduling who's going to be there for certain things. I don't know if that's the case or not, but all you can do is keep checking out, seeing how they're looking, seeing how it's going before. I mean, you've got that. Then you've got mandatory mini camp coming up, and then guess what? Then you'll get like 6 weeks of nothing until training camp hits. So what we're going to talk about tonight is we are going to look at which Steelers we think will make the biggest jumps in improvement for the 2021 season. Now, it could be that we are talking potentially that we know, like it might be a player that like, hey, they're set up to make a really big jump, and let's see if it happens. And we'll talk about how confident we are and whether or not they will. But it's who do we see making a big jump? Like I say, I have some guys on my list. I'm like, they're going to have an opportunity to really make a jump. I hope they grab it. I hope they grab it. You ready to do this? We're doing a top 5 again. We're counting them down.
Yes, I'm prepared.
Yep.
Enough.
You're prepared enough. That's how I feel. You ready? Give me your number 5, Rich.
Number 5, you're going to laugh.
You might laugh at mine too.
Okay. You may say, how in the world do you put this in here? But seeing how we were just talking about him being slighted a bit, my number 5 would be one Minkah Fitzpatrick.
Really? You're going to have the all-pro even? I know what you're saying because you talked about him last week with MVP.
Yes.
I know what you mean. I can see that. Do you think
I see him, and by jump, his jump is going to be the jump in the splash plays. They're going to come back like they were 2 years ago.
That was my question. Do you see him jumping really in his play, or do you think he's going to mainly be jumping in his statistics?
Yeah, it's going to be in the statistics, but in particular, the those splash plays, those things that are going to end up on highlight reels, those Troy Polamalu type moments.
Yeah, okay.
I think we're going to see more of those out of Minkah Fitzpatrick this year.
All right. You know what? I love it. I didn't even think of Minkah for this. I really didn't. I like the thought. I like where you're going. Well, my number 5. Okay,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Nope, that's all right. You go ahead because I'll come back and talk on that a little bit later.
My number 5 is crazy because my number 5 should it be someone that you either put way up the list or I was going to intentionally leave him off. And then I decided he's number 5 for this reason. And it takes an explanation. It's going to be a Dave answer because I have to explain. And that is one.
I'm interested to see if it's somebody's on my list.
Yeah. That is one. Kevin Dotson. The reason I have Kevin Dotson, but I only want him at number 5 is this. I'm not looking for Kevin Dotson to play any better than what he did last year because I thought he played great. All I want him to do is to play it for 17 games and into the postseason. I'm not looking for an improvement on what he did because I thought he did that well last year. I'm looking for him to just be able to do it every play of every game because he didn't have the opportunity last year. Now, if he does better than he did last year, fantastic. But that's not even my expectations because I still think he was the best lineman the Steelers had last year. I just want to see him do that every play of every game, and I'm good. What do you think?
All right, moving on to my number 4 selection. My number 4 selection would be one Kevin Dotson.
Yeah, that was like me last week with Juju.
To add on to what you were saying, yeah, I'm thinking that really just comes to then him giving that type of performance for 17 games. Kevin Dotson will go from being an outstanding fill-in offensive lineman to the anchor of that offensive line.
Yeah. I think he can really bring the nasty.
And to me, that's a jump.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a jump because not like I say, he doesn't have to say you could if you were to break down his film play by play. If Jeffrey Benedict comes in after the season and breaks down his film play by play and says Kevin Dotson didn't really do anything different than what he did in 2020. He just did it as the starter for every game. I would go
played every snap. And it's like,
I would applaud.
Okay.
That's what I want to see.
There we go.
So I like that we were both thinking the same thing. So that was your number 4. You ready?
Yes.
My number 4 is one James Washington, wide receiver. He is in a contract year.
Okay.
He is a guy that's there that Ben seems to trust now, but just was kind of lost in the shuffle. I think between having a new offensive coordinator and having a deep wide receiver room, he could be the benefit of these things. I mean, 2 years ago, he was quietly the number one receiver for the Steelers when it came to yardage.
Yes.
If any of these other receivers miss a game, he's probably going to see increased snaps, and I think he's going to see some decent snaps anyway. I see James Washington being someone who could have that byproduct of where his numbers, where he's going to jump right up to be right in the mix with the other wide receivers. You know, not saying that he has to go above, but he was, he was more of a step down last year, and I see him getting right up into that group.
Yeah, he probably falls more. I really felt that last year he was under where he really falls in that wide receiver room. Yeah. I see him jumping back up into being more in line with where where he falls. He's going to be probably your, that third, fourth guy, but I'm okay if that's third, fourth guys putting up some decent numbers.
And what they got to do is actually do the right personnel. I mean, like I said, last year, those top four receivers of Claypool, Smith-Schuster, Johnson, Washington, they all were on the field together for 6 snaps on the season. 6.
Yeah.
You can't have that in 2021. If you're going to have 4 wide receivers out there, those are the 4 that should be out there. And I think and you're going to have certain packages and certain things that you're going to want Grandpa Strong out there pulling the ball in. So that's my guy. So you ready to roll to number 3?
All right, moving on to number 3. Number 3 on my list would be 1 James Pierre. I thought I was going to say Washington. It was Pierre. Yeah. James Pierre. I expect to see him make a big jump going into this year. I expect him to push for a lot more playing time. I just think, what I want to say, athletically, I feel he's there. Mm-hmm. I think we were starting to see glimpses of this from him last year to where he, it's taken him a little bit of adjustment, but he's adjusting to the speed of the game in the NFL. And I think he's primed to, I don't want to say break out.
Yeah.
And everybody say, oh my gosh, what a steal.
I can agree with you there. I just realized I forgot. Holy cow. Sorry. We just won our second game of our softball that I had to leave to do the podcast. So anyway, coming back to this, I didn't give the disclaimer at the beginning that we instantly threw out rookies out of this picture because we're looking at guys to improve on what they've done in the NFL. So anyone that's thinking, oh, well, why didn't they have a big jump from like Quincy Roche? No, we're not doing that. I kind of want to talk about your James Pierre, but first I really want to say that number 3 on my list was James Pierre. We had the same number. Nice. So I'll go on and talk to him. Yeah.
I love the fact. Now, people should know, we don't talk about these at all.
No, we don't.
I have no idea who's on Dave's list. He has no idea.
The only person I shared this with was Michael Beck beforehand because I checked to make sure that this wasn't something that was going to mess up his live mic show. And then he asked me who my 5 were, so I told him. So that's the only person that I shared mine with. And the reason I'm saying Pierre, someone's like, oh, well, what about Cam Sutton? Yeah, maybe. I see Pierre making the big jump. And it's kind of similar to a Kevin Dotson in that when he got a chance last year, he played well, but he didn't really he wasn't targeted often or anything else. So this is even a bigger deal because I think I want to see James Pierre play so well that they have no choice but to play him. That they are definitely going to say, you know what, if we want Cam Sutton on the outside in base, that's fine. But he is sliding in to play in the slot in sub packages because we've got to get our other good corner and James Pierre out there on the field.
Right.
And that's what you kind of want that to be forced into happening, not out of necessity. And I mean, for all we know, maybe Pierre can push Sutton for that job. I think that could be a legitimate
possible
discussion. I know Shannon White absolutely loves James Pierre. I know Jeffrey Benedict says that his film is fantastic. I just want to see him, if nothing else, just really come onto the scene as the player he is in 2021.
Again, do kind of what he was doing before, but just get to do it for more snaps.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Anything else you want to say on him? But we were on the same page. And see, I was setting up that I was going to he was going to be my number 4. And then I said Washington. And then I had back-to-back Jameses. So,
yeah, I thought you might go with Pierre at number 4. Then you went with,
Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing, the reason I put Pierre ahead of Washington is because I think he will have the opportunity. The biggest thing that could hold James Washington back is will he get on the field? And I'm hoping that he does. And I think Pierre's going to find his way on the field because, I mean, that's sub-package football is the NFL now. You're talking about, playing 1 or 2 extra guys in the secondary all the time. And if he's one of your better guys, he's going to be out there. So, all right, we only got 2 left for each of us. It's going to be interesting to see what route we take here. Let's go ahead and do number 2 now, and then we'll before we do our break. Let's get our number 2s in here.
All right, number 2 on my list. I hope Dad's listening to the show. That would be 1 Alex Highsmith.
Why are you wondering if Dad's listening to the show?
Because his dad has listened to our show before.
His dad? I thought you meant our dad.
Not our dad. His dad.
I hope his dad is listening
to our show.
His dad's commented on our shows before.
Correct.
Sam Highsmith. He's the Steelers' dad. He is. That's that. When you say Steelers' dad, that's who you think of. So definitely. I'm hoping that Sam's listening to this because. Go ahead. What's your breakdown on Highsmith?
My breakdown on Highsmith is, he had a really good year as a rookie last year.
He did.
What I expect to see in terms of his jump is the actual sack numbers improve. And continue to see him working. Yeah. Right. And continue to see him working on the coverage and pass defense, which he talked about making big improvements during the year last year. Continue to see that work well, and then watch those sack numbers tick up a little bit. Like you were saying, he was always around the quarterback, but we didn't quite get the sack numbers. I think this year, with a regular training camp, the fact that they're in there now doing OTAs, he's going to get in some of that extra work, and we're going to see a big jump in I'll call it overall performance in Alex Highsmith.
Yeah. I think that's a very great point. I'm going to roll to my number 2. My number 2 might surprise you. It is 1 Chukwuma Okorafor.
That's funny. I considered Chooks on my list. I did.
Okay, and this isn't as much as that I'm extremely confident that he will. He's being given the opportunity. Last year he came in, he didn't win the battle at right tackle. Do you want to know why? To me, this is just me as a coach. When you have 2 tackles, your left tackle is your pass blocker, your right tackle is your run blocker. That's just the mentality I've always had. It's probably not as much as it is in the NFL was the way I think of it, but in my mind, that's always what it's been. From when I played, from when I coached, all that. That's just the way I kind of think of it. And Chooks came in, and I wasn't surprised that he did not win the battle for right tackle. I thought Banner was going to win that. But then he had to step in and start 15 regular season games in a playoff game at right tackle. And it's not that he played great, and it's not that he played awful. It's that how do I say it? He didn't, maybe I should leave the word for my tongue. He didn't kill us. He had 5 penalties on the season. He gave up 3 sacks. Was not, I mean, if you want to really go with the run game, no, he was not good. But I think moving him to left tackle, which they're going to do to start off, first he's got to win the job. But he's finally got the opportunity to play the position that he fits at the best, in my opinion. So if he can make a big jump and show he's either going to this year, in my opinion, last year of his rookie deal, he's either going to show that he is an NFL caliber tackle or he's not.
Yep.
To me, the reason I'm saying about he has a great potential to make a huge jump this year is because he's going to be put in the right situation, and it's do or die time. And I'm hoping with back against the wall, contract year, starting off with every indication that this is the left tackle job, is you're the guy penciled in at the top of the depth chart until you or somebody else gives us a reason to have you not there. Grab a hold of it. And if he doesn't, the Steelers might be in trouble. So I'm really optimistic that he could have a big jump this year. Anything you want to say about Chooks?
No, and like I said, I was considering him in my list for some of those same reasons you mentioned.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that's, the biggest thing. I had him up there because he has so much potential to make that jump. The question is, do I have the confidence if he will?
For me, it came down to him or Minka on the list. Yeah. So
okay, I can see that.
I'm kind of glad you had him on yours.
Yes. So we're about the halfway point of the show. So we're going to go ahead and take a break. We're going to come back. We'll run over our list, run it down again, give you our number ones, talk about that, get some questions from you guys again, because that was so much fun last week. I want to make sure we can do that. Do our big question at the very end. And that's what's coming up in the second half. If you're listening on the audio side, go ahead and click over. If you're here with us on YouTube or Facebook, hold tight. We'll be back in just a few seconds. Pittsburgh Steeler fans, we are back with part 2 of the Scho Bro Show. I am Dave Schofield, co-editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, your one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers. And with me, as always, I say as always, but things might be a little bit off next week. We might have to mention that later. Is my big brother, Rich. Rich, you having fun with this stuff so far? Enjoying our list?
No, it's awful. I hate talking about the Steelers.
I
don't know how I let you drag me on here every week to do this. Of course, I'm having a good time. Yeah, it's like,
Quick story, and this one should be a quick story. It's not going to be a Dave story. That's a short story that goes really long.
It's already turned into a Dave story. Get to it.
As I was leaving the softball field tonight, I said to someone, they said, "Oh, you got to take off." I said, "Yeah, I got to go to work." I said, "Well, if you can call sitting in front of a camera and talking about the Steelers really work, this is fun. This is great."
Yes, it is.
I couldn't not be here for you guys this week. So let's run this down real quick. We're talking about the Steelers that we are looking at to make the biggest jump in 2021. Your list so far went 5 was Minkah Fitzpatrick.
Yep.
4 was Kevin Dotson.
Yep.
3 was James Pierre.
Correct.
2 was Alex Highsmith.
Yes.
Mine was 5 was Kevin Dotson, and we both kind of agreed the same reasoning that we wanted to play just as well as he did last year, but just do it every snap. 4 for me was James Washington, wanting to see him make a jump, hopefully get on the field to do that as a wide receiver. 3, James Pierre. We both agreed with that one. And my 2 was Chooks Okorafor. Want to see him. He'll be given an opportunity to make the jump. Make that jump. Rich, we're waiting for it in anticipation.
First thing, I have to address just two quick things in the live chat.
Oh, I've been ignoring them because I didn't want them to tip off our players.
Steelers, Pittsburgh is going to find himself in timeout if he suggests yet again that I want to talk about mock drafts. And Double HH, we cannot talk about Kendrick Green because apparently you have missed our disclaimer that rookies cannot be included in this because they have not yet played in the NFL, so we cannot judge them on how much of a jump we think they will make.
Next year is their baseline.
Correct.
And we can talk about a jump beyond that. So, yep. So, Rich, number 1.
Okay, I had to do it.
Okay.
Because I think this is the year this person goes from great to superstar.
Okay.
And that would be 1 Chase Claypool.
You were going
Okay.
Chase
I
Claypool.
am going Chase Claypool
Woo!
because I think I really see the jump that he could make, because we saw flashes of it last year.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there were times where you just looked at that guy and thought Calvin Johnson, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there had to be times you just looked at him. They gave the nickname Mapletron. Well, it kind of fit because, you just saw it. He's big, he's fast, he's strong. And all of that was without a regular training camp, OTAs, and everything last year. Think about that for a minute. That basically we just yanked the guy from college.
Man, you're convincing me.
Gained the playbook, and next thing you know, we're throwing him out there, and he's making plays left and right.
And he's a top 10 draft pick in redrafts of the 2020 draft.
Correct.
Yep.
So think about the fact that you now have an offensive scheme that may fit him better, an offensive coordinator who is going to try to get him the ball in a way that he can make those splash plays for them.
Mm-hmm.
Another year of playing with Ben Roethlisberger, but even bigger, an off season going through with Ben Roethlisberger. The potential there is, I mean, he could be huge.
Well, he already is huge. I know what you mean, but his numbers could be huge. I'm going to be honest with you. Chase Claypool is not my number one.
I didn't think he would be your number one, believe it or not. But I basically, when I started to look at him and when I got him on my list, I didn't think he'd be number one. Then I just got to thinking about what we saw, and although it was great, I felt there was more on the table.
I'm going to tell you why I didn't put him on the list. And instead I put James Washington. And that was the baseline play.
Yes.
Meaning Chase Claypool is already, as a rookie, with such a high, 11 touchdowns, all that stuff. Yeah. If he makes any jump statistically from last year, wow. Seriously, that's how good he was last year. So right, honestly,
but see, back where I'm thinking, why putting him in to make this jump is pretty much what we got from Chase Claypool last year.
Yeah,
was his athleticism.
Yeah.
Now think about the fact that we'll have had a year of him working on stuff and an off season of working on stuff to where we're getting more than just Chase Claypool's athleticism. We're getting Chase football's athleticism inside a football player.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But when I put it that way, it's like
he could.
Wow.
My thing is and that's kind of almost like the same thing with Minkah Fitzpatrick. When you're already all pro, it's hard to say, like, I think you're going to make an even bigger jump. I mean, and that's the thing. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm definitely not, because you have completely convinced me. But I'm like, that is someone I didn't think of because of his level of play from last year. But yeah, if he can come out and jump. Now, honestly, do you want to know the truth? If the Steelers don't get Juju back after this year and they don't have James Washington back, I think even the next year you could see Claypool even, regardless of who's the quarterback, even more, just because he'd be more the man. So it's just going to be really interesting to see how it plays out this year. What else you got about you were going to say?
No, I'm going to let you get to yours.
Okay.
Before I say anything, because I'd hate to say anything and depending on what you have chosen for your number one. Oh, I don't want to put anything out there. You're
going to be fine with my number one, because my number one is, check it out, Sam. It's Alex Highsmith. That's my number one. All right. I think Alex Highsmith is going to be the player that makes the biggest jump for the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2021. He's going to be the guy there. He is. And not only that,
now
he's going to be okay.
I'm waiting for the live chat to blow up.
Yeah.
But because there's someone we left out.
Okay.
But there's a reason for me leaving.
I want to, okay. Who was it? And the reason, I want to know if it was someone I specifically left out.
Yeah.
Or should I finish my Highsmith spiel?
Finish your Highsmith, and then
okay, my Highsmith spiel was this. Okay. Last year he came in and he was coming in for Bud Dupree. What was Bud Dupree's responsibility with the Steelers? Rush the passer, stop the run. Bud Dupree was not the guy dropping into coverage. If an outside linebacker dropped into coverage, who was dropping into coverage? TJ Watt.
TJ Watt dropped into coverage a good bit. No, not a good bit.
Can you imagine TJ Watt not having to drop into coverage as much because it's going to be Alex Highsmith? Could you imagine what that's going to do to the defense? Now, it's also going to mean that someone else is going to have to. The thing is, Alex Highsmith, the biggest thing he can do to jump this year is to work on stopping the run. Not to like the Bud Dupree level, because Bud Dupree, shockingly, was a really good outside linebacker at stopping the run. He really was. So the thing is, you don't need Alex Highsmith to be Bud Dupree in that regard. You just need him to do the things that he does better, keep doing those things, and to have that improvement. And then if you've seen pictures of him in OTAs, that dude is ripped. He is ready. He looks like the guy that just went from year one to year two and everything changed. He already has that look now. And I really want to see him come out. I think he has the most potential. And it's not that because he wasn't good last year. He really was. Had a great rookie year. But I loved the pick last year because it was the whole notion of you spend your third round pick on the outside linebacker. If you can't get Dupree back, you at least know what you have. And he's the one who allowed the Steelers to not have to be looking for an edge rusher at the very top of the draft because of how he played last year. So he's already helped the team so much in that regard. Now he's just going to come out and do the job. And it's completely different how they're going to run this defense, knowing that it's Alex Highsmith and preparing for that now than doing it on the fly after the injury to Dupree last year. I think they can really put him in good situations that he can thrive this year. So you like that one? I mean, he was your number two and my number one. So
correct.
If we average all the scores, he's going to be our top guy, if you know what I mean. Yeah. So you were going to bring up another candidate.
Yeah, someone that we left out, and I'd like to hear your take on why you left this person out, because I have my own take why I left this person out. And that was Andrew Wilbar was quick to point out on us and that we left Devin Bush off of our list.
I did specifically for a reason. That he was one of the ones I would have mentioned. You want to give your reason first? Or do you want my reason?
Okay. They're probably not that far off. My reason was this. I thought Devin Bush had already made a huge jump from year one into last year. Mm-hmm. So what I was judging this off of was what I saw from Devin Bush last year in the games he played.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not looking at it as he was injured. Our inside linebacker play dropped. He's gonna bring the inside linebacker play back up. I was looking at it specifically from the player's standpoint.
Yeah. What he was doing last year, not how the inside linebackers were at the end of last year without him.
Correct. Yes, it was about the person, not the position. And what I saw from Devin Bush last year already, like, he would have been on the top of my list for this list going into last year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think from what we saw from him during the season until he got injured, it would have been very much justified to have him on the top of this list last year.
Yeah. I'm putting Devin Bush off the list for the same reason I didn't consider Zach Banner, and that is expectations early on coming off the injury.
Yep.
I'm not expecting Devin Bush to go out there and be that guy the first part of the season. I expect him to be out there and be better than what the Steelers finished with last year. I'm not putting the expectations of a jump on him right off the bat. I want to see him get back and work his way up to that. And that's just kind of the way I was looking at it. Do you have anything else you want to say about that? Or I'll go through
other than Andrew commented in there, and I think he understood our take on that.
Yeah.
But Andrew, I could see the same argument being made. You could make an argument for putting him in there.
Yeah.
It's just
absolutely.
I
wouldn't argue anyone to put it in there.
I just chose to look at it in a certain way, and that's the reason he was not in my list.
Yeah. I was trying to figure out my number 5 because I almost specifically wanted to keep Dotson out for the reasons that I said, that I don't want to see his play improve. And then I convinced myself it was good because I want to see more of it. 2 other people I was trying to convince myself of was Eric Ebron. Almost thought about him. But then I'm like, you're thinking of Eric Ebron at the end of the season last year. Eric Ebron made some big plays for the Steelers in the first half of the season. So, and the Steelers overused him. And like I said, he played more snaps than he ever had. And he was injured. And that's when he started dropping the ball and stuff like that. Everyone's thinking of Ebron at the end of the season and almost forgetting about Ebron at the beginning of the season. I mean, he had some key third down catches, some big plays he made in there. And another one was, I was thinking maybe Derek Watt. But honestly, I don't trust his usage as a fullback. I really don't. I mean, even under Matt Canada, I don't know how much they're going to use him in a way that you're going to say he really stepped up. So those were the other ones I considered. Anything else with that, or?
No, I'm good. Good discussion on the list. Funny how some of ours matched up, but others did not.
Yeah.
That's what makes those lists fun.
You had, let's see, players you had that I didn't. You had 3. You had Claypool, you had Minka, and you had
just those 2.
Oh, just those 2. Because yes. I had players you didn't. I had Chooks and I had James Washington. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So we are actually going to here for about 7 or 8 minutes. We're going to open it up to questions like we did last week before we do our big question. And I hope you're okay. I have a big question this week, and it's actually not related to the topic we talked about the whole time.
Okay.
Is that cool?
Okay.
So there we go. So we're going to open it up. If anyone has a question, you can use the super chat feature where if you want to donate any kind of money to the show, we will definitely bring yours up, but don't feel like you need to. We'll get to the ones we get to, but if you're much later down the list and they're not going to get to it, I really want to ask this and you want to do it, that's fine. We're not begging for it or anything like that. Completely up to you. So I think Andrew Wilbaugh has the first question. I didn't even read it yet, but I see a question mark, so I'm going to bring it up. He says, what are your thoughts on Ben saying that he was never against going under center? Can we safely say that was all Fichtner?
I don't know. We can safely say it was all Fichtner.
I don't know if it was all,
but it was some.
I thought that it was a pretty decent portion.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that Ben was against it; he just might not have liked it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's the thing. Like I'm like, well, I never said that I wouldn't do it,
or how I want to say, or he didn't see the value in it based on the offense they were running.
Yeah.
Could be that, that could be a thought as well. And I'm thinking that if Matt Canada convinces him that there are times we need him under center in this offense, that Ben's going to, and Ben sees the value, he's going to do that. So, all right.
Yeah. So here, Kyle Smith wants to know, what are you expecting for Dwayne Haskins?
My expectations for Dwayne Haskins are very little because that's what we have invested in it. Very little.
Very little.
The expectations do not have to be high. I would love to see Dwayne Haskins come in and greatly exceed those very minimal expectations, because then it gives us, something else in our back pocket.
My expectations is to push for QB3. I mean, that's it. That's all I'm looking at.
That's it.
It's someone that's worth keeping around. And right now, like in my initial 53-man roster, I did not have him on it because I'm like, until I see what he does with the Steelers, I'm not going to say that I'm going to put him ahead of Dobbs. But I'm not saying that I don't want him to. I'm just saying that that's my expectations for him. I don't even have expectations for him to make the team. So anything he does above that is bonus, in my opinion.
Gotcha.
I'm good. All right, Here we go. Bert, he's asked this before.
He's asked. This is the third time it showed up in the live chat tonight, I think.
Okay. No. The news is with Randy Fichtner.
I want this one.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Here's the latest news on Randy Fichtner. The Steelers have not re-signed Randy Fichtner.
That's what I'm saying.
The Steelers will not pull a Juju Smith-Schuster and re-sign Randy Fichtner. And that's all there is to say about it.
And he can't pull a Tyson Alualu because they didn't even offer him a contract.
Exactly.
So yes, that's. I don't know if he's with anyone else, and I haven't cared enough to look. So that's just the best way to say it. Donald Nolan wants to know, Scho Bros, do you see the Steelers keeping 6 wide receivers this year? Who will be the 5 or 6?
Well, we're going.
There's 5.
Yeah. Well, they're going to go at least 5. So you're going to have for the first 4 are easy.
Yeah.
Right. Juju, Claypool, Deontay Johnson, James Washington. All right. Then you get into what are we doing from there?
Yep.
That's where the question marks come up.
I think Ray's your number 5 because of
right now. I would say yes.
Yeah.
Does he necessarily keep it? I don't know.
I think there is no way for us to answer this question at this time. What's nice is the Steelers don't need to keep more than 5, but that's a position they could keep a 6th player, depending on how many running backs they would keep or something like that. I could see them totally keeping 6 if they have somebody in the preseason that just comes out and tears up. And that's what it's going to take.
As well
we
as
get a preseason.
Yeah, as well as being someone who could also play some special teams. You keep Ray because he's your returner as well, and can do some things in the passing game. If you get another person like that could, be decent on your special teams and be another person to add into the mix of the receiving game, I could see 6. Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, Donald, ask us that question again once we're a couple weeks into training camp.
Yeah. Yeah. Ask us that. You know what? Ask us after the Hall of Fame game.
There you go.
Yeah, that's a great time to ask that one.
Yep.
I'm going to bring up this one. Steeler Nation 412 says, you think 9-8 is the record we may go this year? No. That's my answer. You?
No. Can I give the Jeff Hartman answer?
Mm-hmm.
17-0, baby.
No, I mean, I like that a lot of people are sleeping with the Steelers. Like, oh, but it's such a hard schedule. The Steelers play better when they have a harder schedule. That's just what they do. I mean, we could be completely wrong, and they could go, 6-11 or something like that. We don't know until they get out there and play. A lot of things can happen, but my expectations are people are focused so much on the end of the year Steelers last year. And I still think the biggest problems they had at the end of the year was running the football, with the biggest thing of that being scheme and blocking scheme, like blocking technique and scheme. And both of those things were gone as a coaching thing. I like what Adrian Clem is bringing to the offensive line. We'll see if the players can do it and things like that. So I'm starting with a higher base than what other people are, but I'm not a 17-0 guy. So Wes wants to know if Haskins and Rudolph have a really good preseason and they're good enough to potentially create some trade value. Do you think Mason could be traded?
I think either one of them could be traded, because that also plays into what's the offensive scheme of the team that's needing a potential quarterback. And if they really like what they're seeing from Dwayne Haskins and he fits their system better than Mason Rudolph, the Steelers could potentially get more for that, and why would they not? So really, I'm thinking if both those guys are playing really well, sure, that helps Dwayne Haskins, and sure, that can help Mason Rudolph, but who it helps the most is the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, I don't see them trading Rudolph because of the extension that he signed and the way that it is. I don't see that that's what they do, but that's just me.
Depending on what they could get back, don't say never.
I didn't say never. I said I don't see them doing it.
Okay.
So Sherry Richard wants to know. She says, "I know we will probably sign one more free agent. Who would it be and why?" You say you're buying into the Michael Beck.
It won't be Randy Fichtner.
It won't be Randy Fichtner. No. Honestly, I'm going on record as I don't think you're not. I would not be surprised one bit if this is the same roster that starts training camp, that they're not going to sign anyone else between now and training camp. You're going to see bodies in and out during training camp. I think if you're talking about a big name signing, I see it more coming in, on September 1st after teams do their roster cut down on the 31st. I don't know if September 1st. I think they have to go 2 days. I don't know. Or September 1st or September 2nd, whatever it would be. That it could, I mean, because think about the pool of players right now. Yeah, there's some veterans out there that haven't signed yet. Sure. But right now, you've got 90 players on 32 teams. September 1st, you're going to have 53 players on 32 teams. So the pool of players out there is going to be greater than. And if you only have money to spend on one more player, wouldn't it be nice to know if you deal with any injuries during the preseason before you commit to that one more thing that you're going to do? You know, make the move when it needs to be made. I mean, look last year, they didn't even get Avery Williamson until halfway through the season. But and you would have said they were crazy for getting another linebacker if they would have done it in August. But then Devin Bush goes down, and that's what they needed. So that's what I think is going to happen with stuff. Do you want to do one more before we do our big question?
Yep, let's do it. One more.
Do we have one? Does Tyler have one? Yeah, yes. Tyler had one here. He said, "Will Najee lining up at wide receiver be trickery, or could he actually act as a fifth receiver?" Looking forward to Canada surprising me each week.
Well, you know, he does draw a lot of comparisons to former Pittsburgh Steelers running back, you know, Mr. Butt Naked Get Robbed. So I don't know that it would be just trickery. I think if he's lined up at a receiver position, he's out there and they would expect to be able to throw in the ball and potentially, you know, given the right matchup, he could be your first option even.
Yeah.
And throwing the ball, depending on your formation, your set, how the defense lines up.
I'm going to say this. I don't know, which is good because that means the defense doesn't know.
Yep.
I don't know if they'll throw the ball out there or not. I don't know if it's just and because I don't know, no one's going to know. And I love it. I love the whole notion of that the Steelers could actually be doing something that you don't expect. So, all right, we're going to do the big question now. Okay. This is something that Rich is going to have to answer. He doesn't know what this is, so he's going to have to think of it. That was just something I saw on social media, and I got me thinking. I'm like, I'm going to ask this question: is that if the NFL changed the rules, and you would be required to have one player who was on the field stay out on the field whenever there was a change of possession. In other words, you'd be required to have one player go both ways on both offense and defense. Who would that player be? And what position would you have them on the other side of the ball? Now, don't put this in the live chat yet. You all know the disclaimer by now should be, I will bring it up and I will put the words down there and then I'll bring up your answers. But Rich is going to answer. I guess I'm going to have to answer. And then we'll leave it open for you all. And it's going to be, what player would you say that would go both ways? And I'm not putting this in the question there. And what position would you have them go on the other side of the ball? What are you thinking? Rich is sitting back and taking it all in, and I'm trying to fill the dead air while he thinks.
I know. No, what's going on right now is Rich's brain is working at like 7,000 miles an hour because he's quickly trying to run through the Steelers roster.
Don't put it in the live chat yet. Don't put it in the live chat
yet.
Hold it. We'll put you in a timeout if you do.
Man, something about me would love to see Chase Claypool play both wide receiver and corner.
Oh, yeah. That would be a huge corner. That would be a huge corner.
I know, but not just huge. Huge and fast. So,
I'm going to take the cop out.
I could think of a lot.
Yeah.
I really could. That's a really, really fun question. That in itself could be a fun show one night. Talking about swapping players from one side of the ball to the other.
You know what? Maybe we'll also save that for, we'll save that for another time. But no, this is going to be our big question night. You ready? Yep. Here's mine. I copped out. I took the easy one. You ready?
I'm sure you did. Go ahead.
I'm going TJ Watt at tight end. Well, the easy one would have been like someone, was, Henry Mondo at fullback because he actually did that for the Steelers. But TJ Watt was a tight end before he became an outside linebacker.
There you go.
Okay.
I can't pull it up because they jumped the gun, but I wanted to put what Donald put in there. So,
yep. So I now have it in there. What player would you have if you had to have one player go both ways? If that was the new rule, what player on the Steelers would you have go both ways, and what position would you have them do on the other side of the ball that they're not usually playing? Okay. Here we go. Andrew was ready. Cam Hayward, running back on offense, like the old man. So we could have Cameron Ironhead Hayward running the ball on offense. Boy, I don't know, man. That rumbling, bumbling, stumbling. What else do we got here? Kyle Smith says Juju safety. He was highly recruited there out of high school. Wouldn't be surprised. Okay. Brian says Robert Spillane at linebacker and tight ends like fullback. Another one, H-back. Wingback.
Yeah.
Something
I actually thought about Spillane. That's actually a good one, Brian. I was thinking about Spillane.
Okay. Steelers Pittsburgh said that they basically were going with what I had. They said TJ Watt is a tight end. They already had it. Okay. Boy, that's a big explanation. We won't read the whole thing, but WHH says TJ Watt at tight end and outside linebacker. Sorry, I would love to read it all, but we just don't have time. Andrew Will, you already used it. It's just no candidate playing center and middle linebacker. Come on.
Nice.
Okay. Wes says Vince, linebacker and fullback / tight end. In other words, H-back.
Another H-back.
Okay, There we go. Okay. McAdoo says Kendrick Green played defense.
That's true. I actually was thinking along that line as well. At one
but it's funny, they asked him why he went to offense, moving from defense, and you know what his answer was? Because I sucked at it.
Yeah.
Which is funny. So Bill was talking about Juju playing safety. That's what other one was. He says he hits like a hammer. Let's see. Young boy. He said pause. He said don't skip mine, but I don't see where he had his since it was there. Make sure you put it in there. Okay, because I said Juju at safety first. You said Juju at safety first before I put the thing up there, so it didn't count. Okay. Right. Sherry says Chase Claypool at corner or safety. Tyler says Derek Watt at inside linebacker. Okay. What else do we have? They actually are saying this. People are just getting in other discussions.
There you go.
We
Hold
love.
on.
Okay.
Andrew said this at Bill Davis. The corners like Lane that were converted receivers. That also makes sense.
Yeah, there you go. But chances are, if you're a corner that was converted for receiver, it's because you couldn't catch it as well. Okay.
They didn't like your question tonight.
I don't know that they did or not. I thought it was a good one. Okay, young boy had to throw out another one. He says, "How about Bennett inside linebacker?" Although, like I say, he was a receiver his junior year of high school because he didn't become quarterback until his senior year. But this was a lot of fun tonight. We're already a little bit over in time, but I just thought that was a good, fun question to ask. If someone had to go both ways, who it would be?
Someone had to play Iron Man football. Who would it be?
Would absolutely love it. But there was a possibility of that we might be. What?
Don't you start spilling anything about the future.
Gotcha. I was just going to say. No, I was just going to say there was a pot. I'm not going to spill it, but listen, there's a possibility that we might have to be changing our lineup for a week based on some schedule of some other people next week. We might be handling a little bit different way. So if that's the case, you're still going to get your shows coming around the same time. We'll see if they're still the same names or not next week, just because we have some other stuff going on with people. So we'll just have to see how this all plays out. So we go. So lots of fun tonight. Really liked doing the whole who we want to see make a big leap. It was nice to have a little bit of a different list. So, Rich, any closing final thoughts you have here tonight?
No, other than having, it's actually been fun keeping track of what's going on at OTAs. Back to football. Can't wait for training camp. Just can't wait to get back into Heinz Field. All
just ready for the season.
Going on. Just this is not just going to be pandemic football like we had last year. This is going to be like real football again, and the fact we're getting closer and closer to real football again has me excited.
Yes, I mean I was just glad to have any football last year, but now I'm ready for some real football. You're exactly right. But Rich, lots of fun tonight. Bottom line is, you already said it about training camp, and you already said it about Heinz Field. What is it?
Can't wait.